Good afternoon, y'all. Welcome to Tea Tuesday. I'm drinking my black coffee. Um, Today, wanted to share a couple of things with you. It's been cloudy and rainy and thunderous here in West Tennessee, and it's the perfect day to listen to Vivaldi, Four Seasons. I love listening to that piece of music when it's raining and storming or it's wintry outside. And if you would like to listen, you can go to my playlist, and the playlist is titled Things I Like. And I have a video of, I forget who's playing it, but you can go check that out if you're interested. I had a couple of questions about what I talked about last week about my family. And Patty asked about my daddy's sister. Now, when I asked Daddy, you know, do you have, what about your family? And he said, I don't have any family. And I said, well, everybody's got a mommy and a daddy, brothers and sisters. I said, do you have any brothers or sisters? And he said, I have a sister. And I asked her name, and he said that he hadn't seen her since he was 18. And I think he and his grandmother had gone maybe to her high school graduation or something. And I said, well, where is she? And he said, I don't know. And I told him then at 10 years old that I would find her and we would know more about her. Well, fast forward about, I don't know, 30, 25 years, I had been making inquiries, and I'd ask Daddy questions, and he told me about this lady that he worked with who was in some way related to his sister's husband. So I knew Miss Jean, and I called her and asked her, and I got in touch with this person and that person, and I was on a lot of Yahoo forums for genealogy. And I found a lady who was I believe she was a sister-in-law of my aunt's husband. And she said that it was kind of quiet about her being adopted and having contact with Daddy and all that. She just didn't talk about it. She said she knew all about it and she would keep that information. And if my aunt's children, my cousins, if they wanted to know, she would tell them. And of course, I respected that. Well, I kept looking for my aunt, and I finally came upon a phone number. And I remember the day so clear. We were living in a little duplex, and I had one of those wall phones with the long cord on it, And I was standing at the back door looking out at the pasture, and the phone rang, and a lady picked up, and she said, hello. And I said, is this, and I gave her full name, and it was a long silence it was long, like 30 or 40 seconds. And she said yes, and I was so excited. I was just beside myself. I was actually talking to her, and I told her who I was, and asked her if she would be interested in making contact, and she said no. I was so disappointed. But again, I respected that. I gave her the information, Daddy's address and phone number if she ever wanted to contact him. And about 5 years later, I was at here at this house, I was visiting Mom and Daddy one afternoon, and the phone rang. Actually, it was after my mother passed away. And Daddy answered the phone, and he was talking, and I was just sitting, I could hear him, whatever he was saying. And I came to realize that it was his sister who had called, and she was wanted to know some medical information about the family. And Daddy, of course, didn't know anything. And they talked for a little while. They probably talked for about 15 minutes. And I remember him saying, well, that's okay. We haven't seen each other in years, and time has passed, and we have our own lives and all. And what she was saying was she was sorry that she hadn't contacted him and all that. And Daddy was a very stoic kind of man, not a lot of emotions. And so he just reassured her that it was fine. And she called him again 2 or 3 years later and had a short conversation with him. And she died sometime after that. I don't remember the year. I can't get into my ancestry account. I've got to call them and get that straightened out. But I did find her, and that was that was thrilling in itself, that I had found her and that she and Daddy got to talk, in their older years, and say some things to each other that they hadn't been able to say. But my aunt was adopted by family friends, and so I guess Daddy's grandmother always knew kind of where she was, or whatever. And so it's sad, but sometimes that's just how it is. And so I have 4 cousins that I have never met, and I've never seen a picture of my grandparents. I've never seen a photograph of my great grandmother, the one that raised Daddy. There is one photo of Daddy and I think his cousin standing in a yard, and my great grandmother sitting on the porch. And there's a wooden post right in the center. Can't see her face. You can see each side of her body. She looked like she was a large woman. And so the only person I ever had to look at from Daddy's side of the family was Daddy. And I'm the child that looks most like him. My brother and sister favor my mother and my mother's family. I used to think I was adopted. But, Daddy and I both have green eyes. My brother and sister, they have brown eyes like my mother. And so I just longed for a photo or anything that had something to do with Daddy's side of the family. There's a photograph of my grandmother, Daddy's mother, and she's standing outside with some friends. She's got on a beautiful dress. Her hair is long, and she looks like a slender woman. And the photograph, where her face is, it's got a big, deep gouge in it. And the gouge is all the way down in the paper. There's nothing there to take it to some professional and have them, bring that photo back. And so that's what I know. So it's it's a longing. I guess it's a longing to know who I look like. I know I favor my daddy, but do I have family traits, from my grandmother or my great grandmother? I don't know. So I don't mind that I look like Daddy. I mean, he was a handsome man. When he was young, people used to say he looked like Jimmy Stewart. But I don't want to be an older woman and looking like my daddy. I want to be beautiful like my mother. But I do have something to show you, a little show and tell. There's not many things. Well, let me show it to you first and I'll talk about it. This little chain purse, it has a little handle on it, but it's all metal. And I just briefly looked it up one time. They were popular between 1890 and 1920. So this could very well have belonged to my great grandmother, and more likely it probably belonged to my grandmother. I mean, my great grandmother was born in 1865, and she would have been 35 or 40 years old when these were popular. And the kind of woman that Daddy described her as, I wouldn't imagine that she would have had a purse like this. But when I was 5 years old, we had a house fire, and our house burned to the ground. The only thing left was the washing machine. The neighbors had come over and they were able to get the washing machine out, and there were little tar drips on that washing machine. And Mama kept that washing machine for 12 years with those little tar specks on there. But everything else was destroyed. And Daddy had love letters and other papers and things that he had brought over not long before the fire. It could have been a year or 2 or 6 months, but, a short amount of time. And he brought those over, photographs and things, and they were destroyed in that fire. And I remember Daddy saying one time, he said, the universe just doesn't want me to have family. And I thought that was so sad, so sad. But he had left a couple of items like this purse, and the one or two photos that I have. He'd left those over at the old house, and that piece of lace that I showed you last week. Daddy never got to see that, because through my researching, I had found my grandmother's first cousin, and she and I corresponded. She lived in Bellevue, Washington, and we corresponded for about 6 or 8 years. And she gave me the contact information for another cousin who is around my age, and he is a third cousin, and he likes to research. And so we've had contact over the years. So I was on Facebook one day, and I noticed that this third cousin and his wife were here in the States. They live part of the time in England and part of the time here in the U.S. And they just so happened to be on a trip about an hour and a half from where I live. They were looking through cemeteries and everything. I said, oh, you're so close. If you could it'd be great if we could meet up. And they were all for it. They said, we can meet tomorrow. And my cousin, who was raised in California, he was trying to eat his way through every catfish dinner in the South he could. So we made arrangements to meet at a catfish place in town. And I called my sister, and she and I both went, and had some photographs and all that sort of thing. And we talked, and they were just lovely, just beautiful people. And I told Randy, my cousin, I said, your second great grandparents are buried like 10 minutes from here. He said, oh, let's go. So we went to this big cemetery, And I had been there once before, and I didn't exactly know exactly where it was, but I knew the area. And so we were able to find the tombstone of his second great grandfather. And my great grandmother, the one I've talked about, she didn't have a headstone. So I'd like one day maybe to, save enough money to get a headstone for my great grandmother. But anyway, we had a nice time and everything. Well, always probably a couple of months later, I got a package in the mail from England, and it was that box. It had that piece of lace in there, and Randy thought I should have it since, I was the granddaughter. And he said that he had gotten it from the from his aunt, who was my grandmother's cousin that I had corresponded with, and the one that lived in Washington State. So, I told you there's lots of different ways that you can research your family. And being in contact with other family members is a good way to find out more about your family. So, you know, uh, I just feel blessed to be able to have that piece of lace, to be able to have this little metal chain purse. I keep it in a shadow box in my office library. Uh, but yeah, that's my little Tea Tuesday today. And if you have any questions, either about genealogy or what I've said, or anything else, anything about crafting, or I mean, I don't know a lot about crafting, but if you have any questions, just ask me. And y'all have a good evening, a good day, a good afternoon, and please remember to be kind to someone. Someone needs your kindness today. Bye.